Atlanta probably, but definitely Denver at this point. But when we saw the Y2K ritual, now when I was talking to people about Y2K, and let's just say that I was working at the university and I was just kind of slipping people this knowledge during lunch breaks. I'd give them documents on HARP and all of the crazy conspiracies that I was doing. And I would slip them the information where FEMA and the Department of Defense are asking Americans to prepare for 3 days of catastrophe in case of a computer meltdown on Y2K, right? And so they're like, oh man, you can't believe what you read on the internet, you can't, and I'm like, it's .gov. No, 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 and everybody just really shook it off. Now, the truth be known, you couldn't get a power generator in Y2K. If it were December and you wanted to get yourself a power generator, you couldn't get one. They were sold out, and so there were people that were taking this to heart. But your common college student and the people around were just like, oh, poppycock. And honestly, I wasn't too concerned about a Y2K meltdown, because I would have personally liked that. You know, imagine if all the banks just went down and nobody had any more credit problems, right?
Oh, God forbid.
Yeah, oh no. So, I wasn't actually concerned about any sort of computer meltdown, but people treated me as if I was some nut for even bringing it up. And I'm going, but it's your government telling you, you know, shouldn't you at least consider that, you know, the Federal Emergency Management Agency is telling you this? And no. So they expected me to be in a bunker, but I wasn't. I was actually recording my first film for, what became the Freeman perspective, right? Because I sat there and recorded the whole Y2K ritual. And this ritual was a massive celebration to Horus, beginning with the burning of the Acropolis in Greece and going to capping the Great Pyramid with gold, which didn't happen. And curious, the title, A Muslim Stopped the Freemasons from Capping the Great Pyramid of Gold. You're going to find this story playing out, the Muslim Freemason story throughout. But then they burnt the River Thames, or had fireworks at the speed of the sun across the River Thames, symbolizing the river Styx to the underworld. And then they ignited all their Masonic phalluses, like the Eiffel Tower and the Washington Monument. And then Bill Clinton comes out, and they make a light so bright behind the Lincoln Memorial that it looks like the sun is rising in the west, which is a code for Horus, the rising sun and the rising sun of the west. And at this moment, Bill Clinton's standing in front of the public giving his Y2K speech, just kind of opening it, and he says, "It is a rising sun.
It is a rising sun."
And everybody goes, yay? You know, they didn't know what to do. They didn't understand what he meant. And so I witnessed this entire celebration of Horus as a Y2K ritual from one side of the globe to the other, and recorded and deciphered all of this. So this kind of opened me up to what was going on with the esoteric realms and how it coupled with what we called nationalism and even religion and economics.
Well, that correlates a lot to the work that Jordan Maxwell was doing also with regard to the rising sun and the phrase dawn of a new day.
Mm-hmm. Which is becoming, you know, is now the National Missile Defensive logo and Obama's logo.
Obama's logo. I mean, you're seeing it everywhere. It's in the Communist Shield of Arms. It's in the coat of arms. It's in. It
was Tools Society, if I may have done it.
Tools. Any number of.
Well,
of
if
these.
I pulled down the Golden Dawn, you would see numerous.
Well, Golden Dawn itself indicates the rising sun.
Exactly,
you know, I mean.
Exactly.
Couldn't be more obvious than Golden Dawn there.
Kind of flashes me back to one thing you had brought up before, was the friction match. And there's one film company called Phoenix Pictures, and they have a corporate logo that is a friction match, a Lucifer, striking across the ground and then becoming a sun rising and becoming a burning phoenix. Now, Lucifer, or Phoenix Pictures, actually produces films about cloning, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now realize that, understand the connection here is that Arnold Schwarzenegger was begging George Bush to release the restrictions on stem cell research so that he could open the door to human cloning. And George Bush responded by bringing the stem cell research leftovers. I don't know what to call them. The babies that they went ahead and produced and made humans out of their technologies and brought all these kids that would have died if the stem cells would have not. It was very bizarre. So Arnold Schwarzenegger was very pro-human cloning, you know, and he's Nazi and all that. And then he's in this film all about human cloning, The Sixth Day, and it's put out by Phoenix Pictures that has a Lucifer as their logo. And they put out Apt Pupil, written by Stephen King, which is Nazi worship. And then they put out, in compilation with Disney, Holes, which is all about child work camps. And yeah, with Sigourney Weaver. And so when you start to decipher these signs and symbols around you all the time, you can almost tell what the movies are going to be about or where they're going to go with their concepts, like Lionsgate. That's the Gate of Ishtar. And that now stands in Berlin, where Obama gave his big speech, right, with the throne of Zeus there, right? Once you understand their symbolism and understand what they're after, then pieces of the puzzle come together. So I was going to lead you to my predictions.
Yeah, that's good. Let's have a listen. You know, in addition to the 9/11 prediction.
Yeah, and honestly, I hope maybe while you're here in town, because it was in Lawrence, Kansas that I predicted 9/11. And honestly, I was waiting for it for 3 years, because during the Bill Clinton era, this bill that caused 9/11 was in the House.
Yeah.
And this was the bill to bring about a Homeland Security Act. And I got aware of it because I was an early conspiracy theorist, realized that back then there weren't cell phones, right? There weren't Google. There was no Google. There was no Google videos. You had AOL. Was your one site that you could get into the internet with. And that's about it. Or else you had your share networks, peer-to-peer and whatnot, and an email. So how fast our world has changed, right? I mean, there were no cell phones. Let's just keep it that way. Just think about that, all right? And yeah, here we are. And so I'm getting data, I'm getting information, I'm learning, and I'm finding out about this Homeland Security Act. And so everyone's reading it going, this is the most Nazi thing I've ever seen. Of course we're not going to pass it. And so I kept waiting for them to bring about some sort of event to cause this to happen, of course, right?
We needed to have a Reichstag burn,
Exactly.
per se.
And honestly, I knew nothing about false flag events. I didn't know about the Reichstag or anything like that. I just saw what they needed and where they were going. And I began to say, okay, somewhere in the middle of September, they're going to do a major terrorist attack to bring about this bill. Because the bill comes up every October 1st. And so I figured they'd need about 2 weeks public reaction time for people to, pass this bill as if it were something new, right? But throughout the whole Bill Clinton era, every mid of September, nothing happened. Now, I actually told my good friend and a bunch of people, well, the worshipful master of our lodge here in Lawrence, Kansas, knows that I predicted 9/11, and yet he went and joined the Masons and is now one of the lead. He just became the commander of the Knights Templar. But yet he doesn't believe in a conspiracy. He doesn't believe in the thing that I have to say, even though I'm reading all of the Mason books, and every bit of data comes straight from them, or outside sources relating. And anyway, so I'm looking at this picture. I'm starting to come to a clear understanding of government mechanizations and manipulations of our reality. And then I watched them take Bill Clinton down. And when they brought Bill Clinton up before the public over extramarital affair, mentioned insertions of a cigar into his secretary, Monica Lewinsky, and did all of this right in front of the American and world public while poor Bill's turning purple. He couldn't handle the embarrassment. Pee break, excuse me, after, I watched that whole painful thing. And I thought to myself, they don't do this to presidents. This is not common. They cover this kind of stuff up. You can't have your leader appear weak. You can't do this. So it immediately, to me, registered as psychological warfare. It was an attack on us by bringing Bill Clinton down, this man of the people that plays saxophone with David Letterman, And so it was that moment that clued me into the next 12 years. When I saw them taking Bill Clinton down, I said, okay, they're taking down the man. So the next thing they're going to do is take down the system. And in order to take down the system, they're going to have to force a president into office and make everybody angry about it. This was exactly what I saw coming. And then they would follow that with an ineligible president, right? So I said, okay, well then I started to hear the rumblings of this W, right? And at that same moment, I'm starting to decipher and decode all the corporate logos around me. The sun sign of Target, the pentagram of Walmart, the golden arches, you name it. They're all members and all signs of the inner rituals. And I'm deciding all of these and deciphering. Well, I got to Phillips 66, and I was lost. Okay? I could outline, I saw on Chevron you had the double cube, which is the magician's altar, which stands in the Masonic Lodge. You had all of the different signs, symbols, the pentagram on Citgo. But I get to Phillips 66, and I say, well, okay. If every one of these, now, if you open Manly P. Hall's, Albert Pike, Grand Sovereign Commander of the Scottish Rite Freemasonry, I was given those books at the Temple of the 33rd when they looked up my grandfather's membership, and then she came back with them, and she slid them to me and said, well, these are $50 a piece, don't tell anybody. And she gave me the books, and in the Albert Pike room, the author of the books. And so he's a lead magician. You read this book, you find out that he's heavily into Eliphas Levi, who made that picture of Baphomet, of the goat, everybody's so familiar with. That was Eliphas Levi's picture. And that was Albert Pike was a large follower of Eliphas Levi. And in the book, he mentions Sirius, he mentions all of the magical properties of sigils and symbols, and he discusses the fact that Freemasonry is Kabbalism, which is an ancient Hebrew form of mysticism that supposedly brings about superhumans, this immortality and all the things they're seeking.
And that particular study, the Kabbalistic and also the Talmud, both come actually out of the Babylonian captivity.
Mm-hmm.
So I think is interesting to point out, because these things all trace back to Babylon, which traces back to Sumer. And also the thing about Kabbalah is that until you've studied the Bible on a literal level, and you've studied on an interpretive level, that you're not even permitted to begin to study the third level until you've reached your 50th year, are male, and have successfully jumped through all of the hoops to get to the first two levels of biblical study in the Hebrew tradition. So, when you're looking at this, of course, right, what do they have you do? Right, were the first three levels of Masonry, and that's, people think that those are the only levels in a lot of cases.
Right.
But again, you have to pass through your novice, you have to pass through your initiate until you get to your master phase, and in a lot of cases, a lot of people weren't living to 50 back in the day, so you're talking about a very select group of, people that were wealthy enough to get the type of nutrition that one needs in childhood to live a nice long life.
Right.
And these were the only people privy, to this information, and you're still seeing, these levels of selectivity. I just wanted to point that out. Please do go on.
No, it's absolutely true. Well, so then you take this in, and then you're to Khazarian Jews and Ashkenazis and things like Jews that aren't Jews, or you realize that Madonna and Britney Spears, are our current representations of Kabbalists, and you go to the fact that all of your signs and symbols then have to be deciphered in Hebrew. And so when I got to Phillips 66, the first thing I did was pull out my magician's dictionary and see what the number 66 stood for. Well, lo and behold, 66 is the number of the fallen angels. It's a force within the Kabbalah which is known as the Qliphoth, however you might want to pronounce that, Qlippoth. Some people say Qliphoth. And this force is also known as excrement, or the souls of those that died insane. So that is the meaning of the number 66. And I thought, well, that's apropos. Excrement, fallen angel, W. Yeah, I get it. Well, the reason it equates to W is because in Hebrew, the number 6 is V. And so every letter is a number in Hebrew, and the letter V is 6. And so when you take 66...
And that would be Vav, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled, Hey, Vav.
Yes, Vav. Yeah, exactly. And when you take that number and you transliterate it into the letter, then you get Phillips W, right? Now,